Hi, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. I have a really fun, quick technique to share with you tonight, and it is called stamping with an acrylic block. It's actually the technique of the month at Oriental Stamp Art, one of the places I love to hang out on the internet, and they challenged us to stamp with acrylic blocks. If you've never done this before, it's really fun and easy, and you can use any of your stamping blocks, even if you have the fancy shaped kinds. Here's my block bin. I have a lot of mounts because I like to have a lot of stamps going at once, and I mainly use unmounted stamps. You don't want to use curved mounts for this. You want to use your plain rectangular flat mounts or whatever shape they are, but you want them to be flat. And I'm going to share a little trick with you today. These actually have sticky on them, so I can use unmounted stamps before I mount them, so in case I'm lazy. But anyway, I get 1/4 inch plexiglass. You can get a 16 by 20 sheet at the 16 inch by 20 inch sheet at the Home Depot. It's about $15, and you can have it cut into a bunch of smaller blocks. They can cut it down with a table saw. My husband cut mine down for me, so just be careful if you do that, but it's great, economical, and I probably got like, I don't know, 30 blocks from that piece of plexiglass. You can even use the thinner stuff left over from picture framing if you want. You might get some inky fingers, but it's no big deal. Alright, so what we're going to do here is make this card, and we're actually going to work on glossy photo paper because I like the way that looked, but I want to show you this technique on different surfaces. So first I'm going to show you the technique because it's going to take a second for it to dry, and I'll explain the different surfaces later. So what I have is just, this is leftover 4x6 photo paper because my printer rejects it now. I reject you, 4x6 paper. I will jam if I use you. Ah! That's what my printer says. It's very disturbing, quite frankly. All right, so then we're going to take our block, acrylic block here. And I'm going to use a couple colors of ink. You want to use dye-based ink for this. If you don't have dye-based ink, I can't imagine if you're a stamper you wouldn't, but if you don't, or you don't have the colors you want, go ahead and use some watercolor paints. That'll be just fine and cherry wine, my friends. So ink it up. That's a lot of ink. I probably don't need that much. Do a little bit of this green on there. And then I'm going to spritz this with water. I'm going to do it off camera because I don't want to spray my paper. So squirt, squirt, there we go, a couple times. The more water, the more blended of a look you'll get. So I am just going to press this down just like this. I could have used a little more water. I can see that it's not going to be completely covered, but that's alright. I'll do a little more water on the next one to show you the difference. I think I'll do that with just green. And I'll give it 3 or 4 squirts of water. There's 4 squirts there. I want to overlap it a little bit. So you could just use one, or you could use a couple. You know, it's up to you. However you want to make your composition. You can use blocks of different sizes. I'm going to use a smaller one here. Got a little piece of double stick tape on there. One of my lazy stamping days, I wanted to use a stamp before I bothered to mount it. So yeah, guilty of that totally. Would you expect any less, really? A little of that honey color. And I'm also going to throw in a little rust ink on the corner, I think, and give it a couple squirts. Squirt, squirt, squirt. And I'm going to stamp this right down here. So the more water you put, the more chance you're going to have some little squishes out the edge. I don't think that's a big deal, but if that bothers you, use a little bit less. I like the way this is kind of mottled looking. So that's only, I'm using the glossy photo paper, so it's going to dry really quick. If you're using regular glossy paper, it's going to take longer to dry. Cardstock will absorb the ink pretty quickly. I want to show you these examples on cardstock. So this is the first one I did over here, and I just used, I didn't spray the block. I just inked it up with a couple colors and pressed it down, and you can see you get a lot of speckles, and it's just a drier look. So here I squirted it a few times with just one color, and I got this more full coverage. Here I did a couple colors and squirted it a lot, and I got this really nice blend. And here I squirted it a lot, and here it was a little drier. So you can vary the look that you get by how much water you add. And on this, I decided to try this on watercolor paper exactly the way I did it there, but on watercolor paper I got a different effect. The colors blended a little bit better. But then when I stamped my dragonflies, you'll see me do that in a second, and then I painted over it with my watercolor brush, it actually blended my colors out. With photo paper, you'll notice that the colors won't blend as much because there's a coating on it that locks your colors in, and we'll see that in just a second as soon as that's dry. So I just wanted to show you these effects on different papers so you can see what you'll like best, but experiment with what you have. I mean, this is cheap 2 cents a sheet Georgia Pacific cardstock. This is, you know, just HP Advanced photo paper that I had left over. Use what you have and see what you like. Alright, so my stamps that I'm going to use here are Dragonflies from About Art Accents. And they're one of my favorite stamp companies because they have a lot of really lovely Asian designs. So I'm just going to use some of this. This is actually not quite navy from Stampin' Up. I don't know if this color is still available, but it's kind of, it's like a teal. It's almost like a cross between a teal and a navy. A little bit of a turquoisey color. And I'm going to stamp that on there. There might still be some wet spots on there, but it'll just give it more of that watercolor look, so I'm okay with that. Give it a good press. Now my stamp, as you can see here, you see the red rubber. I do not have cling cushion on there. I just have some glue on the back that's called Aleene's Tack It Over and Over. That's the name of the glue. People ask me all the time. You paint a coat of that on the back of your unmounted stamp, you let it dry, and you have got a cling stamp. So there, you can see how beautiful that's stamped. Beautiful, beautifully. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, I think. Here we go. Hello, card. Nice to see ya. There we go. We're going to do this smaller dragonfly, also by About Art Accents, with our not quite navy. Can you believe how quiet it is? My kids are in bed. Well, they're not asleep, they're awake. I can tell you that. But they're in bed, so they're not roller skating around or pogo sticking or whatever they're typically doing in the background of my videos. And you can see right there where the paper was a little bit wet. I got a little blending, but I'm fine with that. So to color, I'm going to grab some watercolor pens. I've got this Pitt big brush pen. I could give this a second or two to dry, but even if I go right over that, look how quickly I'm going over. And it's not really muddying my first layer of color because the photo paper has that special coating in it that kind of locks the color down. If you do this on top of watercolor paper, your colors are going to blend a little bit. Cardstock, they won't blend as much as watercolor paper because a lot of that ink is going to absorb into the cardstock as well. So I'm just going through and coloring the wings. This color is Light Cobalt Turquoise, number 154, if you want to know the exact color I'm using. And really, think of all the size acrylic blocks you have. Think of all the different stamps. It's like, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, shadow stamping was really, really popular, and they sold all these just basically plain shapes of rubber, and you would buy these for the same price as you'd pay for a regular, you know, stamp, and you could stamp these blocks of color. And that was fun, and it was pretty cool, but I mean, I'd rather pay money for beautifully deeply etched red rubber than for you know, plain shapes. So this is great because it gives me, because you can get that look without having to spend any money. I'm scribbling this on a piece of scrap paper just to clean the nib, just in case it picked up some of the other colors. I'm going to try this purple. I don't know how this is going to look. Oh, it looks pretty good. It's a Memento marker. I've mentioned before I do like this brand of markers a lot because they're affordable, and the brush tip ends don't seem to fray, and the fine point ends are kind of a plastic nib, and they hold up really well for journaling on scrapbook pages or journals. And they're very juicy, and they're inexpensive and easy to find, so I really like that. You can get these at any craft store pretty much. Now I do want to put a sentiment on here just so it'll be ready for when I want to put it on a card. And I've got some, this is another tip, I use Jenga blocks, and I will take my unmounted sentiment stamps and I will put them on a Jenga block. I'll put a few together if they go together. So there's a little tip for you. I like to have my sentiments wood mounted because I find that I can grab them, I store them in letterpress trays right over my stamping area, and it's really handy. There we go. And if I want to add a little color to the edge, like I did here, I'm going to do that with a color duster. And I got one right here, and I think I'm going to use, I did before, I used that navy, the color duster on this, and I think that was a little too hard to control. It's a little bit easier if you have a lighter color, because I just want a soft blush around the edges. If I have any wet ink though, it's going to smudge, so you want to make sure your ink is dry before you do this step. My ink may or may not be dry, but you know, my life is a blooper reel, as I said yesterday, so we're going to go with it. If my ink smudges, oh well, the world's going to keep spinning, isn't it? And the cool thing, and this is another technique with a color duster, if you don't feel like brushing on, you can kind of just dab it and like stipple it, and that also gives you a really fun rouge. And look at this, it's a one layer card. I might just actually turn this into a postcard. I might just actually back this with a piece of cardstock so it's a little bit stiffer and send it as a postcard. So easy, so fun. I hope you try it. All you need is ink or watercolor paints and an acrylic block. It's that easy. I want to thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting. Please, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and you won't miss another bit of crafty goodness. So there you go. There's my plug. I'm done. Happy crafting. Good night. Bye-bye.